How is it growing? Today we are in Stack Studios because the weather didn't cooperate. There's a thunderstorm and I really want to get this video to you as soon as possible. I'm so excited that Cynthia Schaefer and Stack's Urban Harvest has partnered up to do a Cynthia Series where she's going to bring content like this class on how to make kimchi. As you may know, Cynthia Schaefer is an urban homesteader.
Like a beautiful relationship with the bees.
And I featured her in an episode, which is the first of my Spotlight series. And she has so much knowledge to bring to other people. If you haven't had the chance to watch the video yet, the link is up here. And if it's not up there, I'll have a link in the description below. She did this class on how to make kimchi, and it was a Zoom meeting type of thing. I was so glad when Cynthia offered this class that she did on Zoom as content for this channel, and then that's what gave me the idea for the series. The quality of video isn't quite what you expect to see on this channel, but at the end of this video, I have an idea that I want to share with you on how we can help her with that so that she can bring higher quality content to this channel. This class is of course free to you to watch on this channel. She's doing what she normally does, and that whenever she teaches a class, there's a suggested donation of $10, $20, whatever. This is obviously free for you to watch, but there is a suggested donation for $10. She makes a living as an herbalist.
I'm just doing a little prep. This is my first time trying to do a Zoom class like this, so who knows how it's going to go.
Okay. How much can you substitute stuff?
Oh, a lot. And I'll go into that when the class starts because you can basically ferment any vegetable.
Question for you. Can you use, I mean, I know it's probably ideal to chop with a knife, but can you use
A processor or something?
Yes, a food processor.
So that's a really great question. And that was my thought when I first started fermenting. The challenge is that you get kind of like a mush, because what happens is kimchi turns to this. So this is probably a year old, and then I have my super secret. This kimchi is probably about 2.5 years old. And when I'm working with someone that has really difficult stomach challenges, or anyone that's taking antibiotics, I have them do this as a, just a teaspoon 3 times a day to repopulate the gut. So when you use a food processor, what happens is you end up with, like, it gets mushy real fast, whereas I like the bigger pieces, so it gives it some density.
Okay. But you could use it for some things, right? Like if you're doing like carrots, and you don't mind the carrots getting mushier, you could shred the carrots and then chop the cabbage to have different textures.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to start, and the whole Zoom thing is new to me, so I'm going to do my best. If you have trouble hearing me, if you have a question, if you can't see something, just please speak up. So the first thing we do is we make sure we have all of our ingredients together. The cabbage that I'm using right now is savoy cabbage, but you can use Micheli cabbage, you can use Chinese cabbage. There's a lot of subtle differences in the varieties, but it's all good. I'm also using some greens from the garden. So I've got some moringa, a little bit of katuk, some Malabar spinach, some jewels of opar, just to kind of add a little variety to the greens. If it was summertime, I'd be throwing in some kale, and I really like throwing in some mustard greens, but I don't have any growing right now. I wish I could remember where I got this recipe from, because I would love to give them some thanks and love, because this is a great recipe. I find even people that are a little uncomfortable with fermented foods really like it. And it's super fast because we're using pears, the sugar in pears, to accelerate the fermentation. So you should have, if you're doing it along with us, you should have 1 head of cabbage, any other greens you want to add in, 1 or 2 daikon radishes or turnips if you can't find daikon, because sometimes it's hard. 2 of any kind of pear, some red pepper, some garlic, some ginger, roasted red chili paste, sweet chili paste. And I'm a vegetarian, so I use seaweed instead of fish sauce. The first thing we're going to do is make room in our area, make sure our hands are clean, get my hair out of the kimchi, and I'm just going to chop the cabbage. So, like I said, I like big pieces, and if you wanted to do shortcuts, you could. There's a lot of reasons why I really love kimchi, and one of the things I do with kimchi is I give it to my chickens. So whenever I've got a chicken that's looking a little lethargic or just, I think, acting weird, I'll throw some kimchi in there. And I give it to them every couple months just for kicks. And they really love it. So it's funny, in a few years back, there was a pretty bad bird flu going around in Asia, and the rumor was that the South Koreans did not have as much problem with their flocks because they gave them kimchi. I don't know if that's true or not, but I do think that kimchi rocks as far as its medicinal qualities. One of the things that's also really cool about fermented foods in general is that every culture has a fermented food, and it's because it's and because it's a great method of preserving food, but it also gives you all that good gut bacteria. So what we're going to do today is kind of like the basics of fermentation that you can adapt to other things. You can ferment pretty much any vegetable there is out there. And I'd like to give a shout out to Adriana Algeri, because she taught me to ferment the bottoms of asparagus. So when you make asparagus, you snap off that little bottom piece. You can ferment those. So they're too tough to eat, even if you cook them. But if you ferment them, they soften up. So here I have a bowl full of chopped cabbage. I'm going to throw in my other stuff.
Cynthia, I have a lot of okra right now. And okra with, kind of slimy though, would that work?
It would still, fermented foods are almost a little slimy. So what you could do is if you put in a little bit of lime and red pepper, that would really, I think, give it a nice lift. When I was traveling, I came across a sauerkraut, and it was a lime and jalapeno sauerkraut, and it was magically delicious. I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to do that. So if we were making a sauerkraut right now, we would be almost done, because salt is the key to fermentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to take approximately a tablespoon of salt to a head of cabbage. And I've got some rice in here, but that's all right. So now what we're going to do is we are going to massage the greens. So it's kind of you're twisting, you're looking to kind of bruise them a little bit. And the cool thing about kimchi is, you know, you can't do anything wrong because there's, you know, you can put just about anything that you want into it. When I do a sauerkraut, I really enjoy putting in caraway seeds and some apple, and that gives it, you know, a nice little depth. But there's so much you can do with fermented foods, and in most cultures, they eat just a little bit of fermented food in every meal. And I think that we would all be a lot healthier if we were to do that. So I'm gonna stand up and really. So you can already see how it's reducing in size. And if this was sauerkraut, we'd be about done. We would just put it into the fido jar. So let's talk about fido jars for a minute. If you notice, you see how it's getting a little shiny? The salt is pulling the water out of the cabbage. So I'm going to put this aside for a minute. There are different ways that you can ferment. You can ferment in a mason jar. You can ferment in different containers. But I always do fido jars because I'm lazy. The fido jar is going to let the gas escape, going to keep the oxygen out. Once you close it, you don't even have to think about it. I usually put mine on the counter so I can watch it. But that's why I recommend a fido jar.
So you burp that, correct?
No, it burps itself. That's the whole key.
So wait, is a fido jar different from a regular swing top jar? Am I not seeing the top of it? Oh, is it like a special type of silicone thing that goes around it?
It's just the general.
Oh, okay.
So that whatever this rubber thing is called, is what allows the air to escape. And if you feel this too full, then what'll happen is you'll get a bubble over because it'll start to bubble. Okay, so this is the one that I started right before, and I chopped up some turnip, and you can see it's beginning to wilt. It feels softer. So I'm going to put some red pepper in here. The other thing about kimchi is traditionally made very spicy. I don't make it really spicy because first of all, I sell it, and I give it medicinally to a lot of people, and I don't want some people can't do spice. So you can always add in spice later, you can add the heat in later, but I like a milder version.
What traditionally gives it the heat in kimchi?
Cayenne pepper, yeah.
Cayenne, okay. Because what are you using? I can't see what you're cutting up. Are you using red bell pepper?
Yeah. Okay. So sweet pepper is just one of the things that kind of gives it a nice little flavor. It's not just greens in there. Here we have our red pepper, our turnip, and our greens. Now this is where, for me, the magic happens, because we're going to make a separate sauce. When the pears are really super ripe, you have a kimchi that bubbles in like a day or two. These are a little bit ripe, but not perfectly, but still.
I have super ripe plums right now. Would that work?
It would, and it would probably give it give it a different flavor, but I think that would be awesome. Yeah, these are starting to go bad, which is perfect. And the other thing, once you have the art of fermenting down, because it does take a couple tries on some things, you can ferment anything, and that can really reduce your waste.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I would love to see in our community is I would love to see someone who can close a waste loop by starting a fermenting business, going around to places that, like CSAs and other places where they have those greens that are past their prime that they're giving, throwing out, and putting them to better use, because that would be a really valuable thing to do, I think.
Sure would.
Now you're adding garlic.
I am.
And how much garlic was it?
I'm going to put in 6 cloves.
Whoa. That'll make it hot, won't it?
Yeah. These are pretty big, so I'm probably only going to put in 3. Big shout out to Danielle and her husband for growing the garlic and giving it to me. Now, I don't know how long garlic has to age. So we pulled this out of the ground maybe 2.5 weeks ago. So I can only hope that it's okay. So I'm going to put in those 3 pretty large cloves. And then this is the sweet red chili. And this is the only thing that isn't organic because I have not been able to find it organic. All right.
And if you were using fish sauce, you would use?
Well, I would still use this. I use the seaweed to replace the fish sauce.
Okay.
And how much of that chili pepper would you say you used? Maybe about a tablespoon and a half or so?
No, I used about half a bottle.
Oh, you used half a bottle of that. And how much of how big of that is that bottle?
It's 6.57 fluid ounces.
Okay.
Then I'm going to put in about that much ginger. And I'm going to put in a whole thing. Make it loud for just a minute. Or maybe it's not.
What's the green stuff you put in there?
That's the seaweed.
Oh, seaweed.
Oh, how much of that would you say you put in there?
I put in a full package, and it's
I know those packages, yeah.
It's a little one.
Was that I don't know if you can hear me.
That's nice. She turned the sound off.
Yeah.
Loud.
Yeah, can you hold that package of seaweed up again for us to see the size? Oh, okay, and so do you change up the flavor sometimes? Or you just use whatever you have?
Yeah, I usually have teriyaki because that's my favorite. All right, now I am going to taste this. Make sure that it needs a little more sweet.
So what are you looking for? That right balance of like sweet and
Right,
heat from the garlic and that sweetness.
Yeah, you'll know when you taste it. It like there's all those layers. This is a little gingery, so since I'm making 2 batches and I'm putting them in the same jar, I'll make the next batch a little less gingery. So here we go. Now, I don't know if you can see how pretty that is.
Mm.
But I do have a terrible camera because it's really pretty. Like you can see all the.
I bet very aromatic.
Yes. So now all I'm going to do.
I have a quick question about the turnips. What did you do to get those ready? Did you just slice them or did you salt them earlier?
I just sliced them.
Okay. And you just added them right before you added the pepper, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And I have beets instead of turnips. I mean, I've got, I suppose you could just substitute anything out and just see what happens.
Well, I would be careful with beets
They're
because
sweet.
turnips and daikon have a kind of a little bit of a spice to them.
Right.
And that's what you're looking for. Beets,
Okay.
when I ferment beets, I always like to use a citrus with them because they can get pretty intense.
Yeah, actually, I did do a pickled beet.
Yeah, I love beet kvass. And the thing about fermenting is you'll learn pretty quick that what a good ferment smells and tastes like and what one that isn't good. And when I say one that isn't good, if you get like a white mold or you
Right.
want to get rid of it, the key is that your ferment needs to stay moist. Let me start packing this in. So if you liked finger painting as a child, you'll like making kimchi.
Do you have to add in additional like salt water or anything to make sure there's enough liquid in there to cover it?
I never have to with the kimchi because it by day 2 there should be enough liquid. But what I do sometimes the first few days is I will just pick the jar up and roll it around to make sure that the juice is getting to the top.
Mm.
I like to not. Kimchi, as you can see from the 2 older ones, gets pretty. It gets pretty watery.
Right. It breaks down and.
Yeah, so I wouldn't want to add water because.
And you're not refrigerating it after the old stuff. You leave it on the counter?
Leave it on the counter, listen to it bubble, and you can smell it. You'll be able to, like. So here we have the first phase, and we're going to pound that down a little bit. Now, if you were making a single batch, we'd be done, and you would want it to be about to there on your jar. So you want to leave a little space for it to breathe, but you also don't want it to overflow.
If you were using a twist top jar, because that's what you had, you'd have to burp it every day, or do you put like a piece of cloth on top?
Well, the reason I don't use those anymore is because it is tricky. Because when you burp it, you're letting oxygen in, and you don't really want oxygen in. So that's where it gets a little problematic.
Okay, I understand better now.
Yeah, so if you invest in a fido jar, you're going to be a lot happier with your ferments. Or you can get those tops, there's special tops, fermenting tops for mason jars that you can use.
Yeah, that's right. I've seen those too.
But it's just, speaking from experience, because I tried, I got a bunch of crocks at the thrift store, and I had like 5 or 6 different things going on the counter, but the crocks, it's really difficult for me. So I just find it easier to do. So now I'm doing the exact same thing. So do we have any other questions so far? And when you have eaten kimchi in the past, has it been homemade or has it been store-bought?
I like a brand at Whole Foods. I forget the name of it, but it's delicious. It's just I have to look and see. But I haven't tried. I've pickled beets and cucumbers and stuff, but or not pickled. Yeah, I guess pickled. Just haven't tried kimchi yet. So, and I guess with your salting pickles, that's fermenting, but it's a different kind of.
Yeah, anytime you're using a salt instead of
My husband just brought me this. It's called Sunjays.
Oh,
From
cool.
Whole Foods.
Is it spicy?
It's really a lovely taste.
Is it spicy?
Medium. This one's medium. You can buy different levels of spice. Yeah.
So what we're making right now is a pretty bland one. I do have some red pepper that I'm gonna throw in at the end, some cayenne pepper flakes, but I just think it's easier to add. You can't take the heat away, so it's easier to make it mild and add the heat for people that like the heat.
I've had kimchi, that could curl your hair. It's too hot. It's like I can't do heat anymore like I used to. But
Plus, it's hard to kind of get the layers of flavor if your taste buds have been burnt off.
yeah.
And really, fermenting is something that everyone should just know how to do because it's a really important skill.
Now, do you ever put your fresh on top of your old, like
No.
using that sauce? No.
But what I am going to do is I'm going to take the oldest one and I'm going to put a little of that juice into this as a starter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It is.
Is that ideal, or is that just after you make it, you wanna do that? You wanna use like a starter from the previous batch once you start doing it?
Doesn't really matter. I like the idea of keeping there's a good concentration of bacteria in the one that has already been done, so it just kind of accelerates, but it's completely not necessary. So if you have it, it's fine. If you don't, it's fine.
Right, because there's bacteria. It's lactobacillus, right? That's on the outside of the vegetable itself.
Yeah. And oh, hello. We have a spider that wants to join us. Sorry, sweetie. That's what happens when you bring things in from the garden. I just have to rinse my hands for 1 sec. And I used I think I told you 1 tablespoon per head of cabbage. If you did want to make a brine, there's all kinds of recipes online. Ginger, I'm going to put a little less this time. Where's the garlic? So if you started doing fermenting and you started to find yourself a little challenged, especially if you were doing like a sauerkraut. Sauerkraut's super, super easy. But if you wanted to do a brine instead of salting, just to make sure, as you're learning, you could certainly do that. And as long as the greens are underneath the water, and some of the things you can do is you can do they sell weights, little,
Right.
so you can weight it down in the jar. Some people take just a a plastic baggie and fill it with water and use that to weight it down and to kind of, it uses up the excess oxygen. So that's one of the other things is. Gonna make noise again. Did Zoom automatically turn off my volume when I turned this on?
The second time it didn't. The first time it did.
Well, let's see if it works.
I turned it off.
Either that or it's so you can't hear
It's so amazingly quiet. Yeah.
That was nice. Okay. So I'm just gonna put in a little bit of red pepper or cayenne pepper, a little bit of spice in this one. And of course I'm combining them so it'll be in both of them, but it'll be just a little bit to bring out the profile of the sweet. So did any of you guys get the ingredients and are ready to make kimchi, or were you gonna wait till after class?
I'm going to make it out of regular cabbage, not the napa or the savoy. How would it work with regular cabbage?
That's a really great question. I think it's going to be a different texture because there's a lot of limper greens in a savoy or a napa.
Right.
So it'll have a denser texture.
Just a different texture. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
It's going to have a different flavor profile. It's probably going to have a little bit more sour in it, I would think. I don't really know. But that's the beauty of
I was waiting for class to buy ingredients. I have regular cabbage too, but I wasn't sure if I could use that for kimchi.
I would.
So I'm happy you answered that question. I mean that you can, but if I can get the other stuff from the store, I'd like to try it with that.
I have to get the sweet chili sauce. I don't have that on hand. I have everything else, but that seems like a pretty crucial ingredient.
It is. It definitely is. And for those of you that have the cabbage, I would just make a sauerkraut because it's a great thing to learn, and it's super easy. And like I said, you can experiment with flavors. And
for the cabbage, would you use the 1 tablespoon per head like you did for this?
But with regular cabbage, you need to bruise it a little longer. Because you're not putting a sauce on, so you're going to bruise it a little longer. You're going to make sure when you mash it down like this that you really mash it down, and you're going to let it sit a little while to make sure the water comes up. So maybe you bruise it a little bit, wait 10 minutes, and see how much moisture comes up. And if it looks good, then you're great. But if you need to bruise it some more.
Oh, now I know what I did wrong when I made it the last time. I definitely didn't bruise it enough because I didn't have enough liquid.
Oh yeah, you gotta. If you know anybody who's a massage therapist, bring them over because they have strong hands.
Yeah. And did you say how much salt did you say for a head of cabbage for sauerkraut?
1 tablespoon.
Okay, it is 1 tablespoon. Okay, same amount.
And just, I never measure anything. Hang on, I'm going to be right back.
They need a smell app on Zoom.
Right?
You could smell the.
I was thinking the same thing. That looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cannot
It's so
smell it.
colorful, isn't it? It's really pretty.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I don't have any in the ingredients, so I have to buy them anyway.
Okay, so this is our beautiful kimchi. So this is our after.
Yeah.
Pour a little bit in. And it's really cool because in a couple days, I will just, see this bubbling on the countertop. And then once I open it, so I'll probably let this sit for, I don't know, depending on demand, 6 weeks before I refrigerate it. I only refrigerate it after I open it the first time, or if I was really only after I open it. I think you can see the liquid and how. So over the next day or two, the liquid will come up a lot more, and I'll just roll the jar around like this.
Okay, so you ferment it for 6 weeks, and then after you've opened it, then you refrigerate it.
Yep.
And then you can transfer it to smaller jars and whatnot. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I have been super lucky that I have never had a ferment explode on me, but a lot of people have. So and when a ferment explodes, usually it's broken glass and all kinds of mess. So you really want to try to avoid that. And for me, the Fido jars avoid that. Quick commercial. These are bamboo towels, bamboo paper towels. They're washable. So you can get a roll of bamboo paper towels and wash them and reuse them forever and be more sustainable. Any questions, comments? And will you please post your finished product on the Resiliency Web for me?
Sure, that'll be fun.
Yeah. I'm excited. I like the idea of the pears. I mean, I hadn't seen a lot of kimchi recipes, but this seems a little unusual, so I like that. And you gave so many good tips on other things that I'm looking forward to trying, like the lime and jalapeno sauerkraut and just the apples in the sauerkraut. I wouldn't have thought to do that. So besides all of the great info on the kimchi.
Kimchi. I love kimchi.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Post your pictures and message or text me if you have any questions or if your ferment starts doing anything weird. This is a by donation class. Recommended donation is $10, but you don't have to. The phone number you use to donate is 954-661-3396, and you can do Cash App or PayPal. And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cynthia.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
So here's my idea with helping Cynthia upgrade this equipment. In my mind, that may mean not just a webcam upgrade, but maybe better lighting, possibly a microphone if the mic on the webcam isn't good enough. She may need a new laptop that can handle this camera that she's gonna get. So if you're able to give above the $10, that would go towards this project upgrade. If you got something out of this video today, please do me a huge favor. Like the video, subscribe to my channel, click on that bell so that you'll be notified when I upload videos in the future, and let's grow together.